eradication of the threats or the incidents, and we also help with remediation services, right? We also help with things like crisis communications plans, because when an incident occurs, it's not just an IT problem, it affects all levels of the organization. So procurement is affected, HR is affected, account is affected. There were some instances where we would have responded to incidents and payroll was affected, right? It was at the end of the month and employees could not get paid. So it has a really drastic effect on the operations of an organization when an incident occurs. In terms of technical guidance, we do what we call controls assessment on one side. It's more of a governance approach. And we also do technical assessments where we go in and we assess our web applications. So in Trinidad and Tobago, the government is actually digitizing a lot of these services in the country. So let's say before we had to go in physically to apply for our driver's permit, now we can apply for those things online. So where we come in is where we actually assess the portals and assess the web applications that citizens will be using to input their information online to ensure that it's safe. So when they put in things like their credit card numbers, it's done so in a safe manner. It captures the data in a safe manner. In terms of technical response, like I said before, it's basically where we provide our highly trained cybersecurity professionals to go in and assist with an incident. On the proactive risk exposure management side of things, we have 4 different areas that we focus on. So the first is alerts and advisories. So within the last 2 years or so, we would have started to issue alerts and advisories to members of our community. So if we see a particular threat actor, so that's the name we use for the attackers. Threat actor is the correct name or the name used in cyber. What we would do is notify members of our constituency. So we would issue an email. We have an email list, and we would issue an email telling them, "Hi, this threat actor. We have seen an increase in activity from this particular threat actor group, and these are the things you can look out for, and these are the things you can put in place in order to reduce impact, one, and reduce the threat." In terms of capacity building, here is where we have things like our secondary school education program. So we go into secondary schools and we basically try to improve the cyber hygiene of the student population. So we tell them how they can safeguard their data and how they can protect their data online. We speak about issues like cyberbullying. We also do simulation exercises called tabletop exercises with members of our community as well, both in the private sector as well as the public sector. So it's not just only targeted at technical staff, but regular staff as well. And those tabletop exercises, what they do, they provide a simulated environment so that persons would know when an attack happens, what they are expected to do, what are their roles and responsibilities, and that kind of thing. Because most times when an incident occurs, it occurs so quickly and everything is just so chaotic. It's not the time to now be testing a plan. These plans need to be tested before, because, like I said, when an incident happens, it's chaotic. You have the media calling the executive, then you have your customers calling you to find out what is going on. Why am I not getting access to certain services? Why is your website down? So you need to always be prepared. So we help in that instance as well. In terms of cyber threat intelligence, so we are part of a lot of networks, both regionally and internationally. And one of those networks is called the CSIT Americas Network. So it's basically a network of cybersecurity incident response team within the Latin American and Caribbean region. And what we do is share information, best practice information. We also share threat intelligence information. So let's say, for example, an incident has occurred in Chile, right? And we are actually dealing with the same incident in Trinidad. We could actually leverage the resources in that group and reach out and, just get an idea of how they would have dealt with the situation, whether they had a decryption code, if it was a ransomware we are dealing with, what are the tactics threats and procedures that they would have implemented in that particular incident, how they would have resolved the incident. So it makes our work a bit easier because we are now able to have like a pathway or a roadmap in terms of bringing back up that particular organization and recovering some of the data that was stolen, if it was stolen in the first place. We also do security assessments. So the security assessments, like I was speaking about, is basically us assessing digital platforms to ensure that they are secure. And when persons input their credit card information or their personal information, it is captured in a secure manner. So yes, that's basically the role and function of the suit at a national level.
Okay, great. A lot of information there. Are
Yeah.
you open to some questions regarding that?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
So if anyone has a question, you can share in the chat or you can take off your unmute and speak. All right. So I'm guessing no questions at the moment. You can go ahead, Janice.
All right. So I have some little tips and tricks for you guys about how you can get into cyber, but I guess I would jump straight into the AI part of the presentation, and then we can look at how you can get into cyber if you are in the field already, or if you're thinking about, getting into the field. I would share some of those resources with you. So before I go into the AI part of the presentation, I just wanted to provide a brief little overview of the unit. So the unit was formed or established under the 2012 National Cybersecurity Strategy, right? And well, this strategy is way outdated. 2012 is when we had this national strategy. So we are actually working on updating this national strategy to cover, things that we are seeing happening in today's society, right? And we are seen as one of the more mature states, I would say, in the English speaking Caribbean as well. And we are administratively based under the Ministry of Homeland Security. It was formerly known as the Ministry of National Security. I know some of the citizens on the call would know it as Ministry of National Security. All right. So when we look at artificial intelligence, it's basically the ability of a computer to imitate intelligent human behavior, right? Because you would like to think that human behavior is intelligent, right? Although some persons don't always behave in an intelligent manner, but it's things like learning a language, problem solving, decision making, perception, all things that make us human. So essentially, it is a set of technologies that enable the machine or the computer to reason, to act, and to sense. And I would say the drivers of AI are two major things. One is big data, right? I don't know if you all ever heard the term before, but big data refers to the vast amount of data we have available in today's society. So we have data being generated from our social media platforms, so TikTok, Facebook. We also have data being generated from our devices, our smart devices, our smart TVs, our smart watches, our cell phones. So the combination of that big data combined with an increase in processing power is what drives AI, that combination. And AI is an umbrella concept. So it's not just one discipline. It's not based on one discipline, but it's based on things like computer science, information technology, a little bit of mathematics, or mostly mathematics, and psychology. All right. And artificial intelligence is made up of two main elements. So we have the first one, which is machine learning, which is a subset of AI. So think of AI as a big circle, and then in the middle of that circle, you have a smaller circle, which is machine learning. And then inside of machine learning, now you have deep learning, right? So it's three circles. Essentially, that's probably the photo I should have displayed on the screen. But when we think of machine learning, it really speaks to us teaching the computer or the machine, right? So we feed it lots of data, and based on the data that we feed it, it learns and it makes patterns. So the AI model is able to make its own rules, make its own predictions based on the data that you feed it. So therefore, that results in a limitation. And the limitation is the AI model is only as good as the information or the data that we feed it. If we feed it bad information, inaccurate information, we would not get we would get inaccurate information or flawed information as the end result. Now, let me give you an example of how machine learning works. So let's say you want to train an AI model to recognize, let's say, cats. You wouldn't necessarily feed it paws and whiskers and tails. What you would do, you would feed the model millions of pictures of cats, millions of pictures of dogs, and based on trial and error, the AI model will be able to find patterns and say, yes, this is a cat or this is a dog. So it basically learns from the data you feed it. Now, when we look at deep learning, it goes a little bit more in detail, or it's a bit more granular than machine learning. So you all can think of it as the brain part, right? And or the brain, basically. So it kind of operates like the human brain in that the human brain is made up of interconnected parts called neurons, and that's basically how we process information. So it's a similar concept, just in a machine, right? So when we say artificial neural networks, what we mean is a layered approach. So with machine learning, it may take one or two steps in order to analyze, let's say, an image. But with deep learning, it takes, let's say, four or five steps. So I'll give an example. If you are feeding um, an AI model, let's say, an image, so you can also think about the layers as experts working together, right? So let's say the first layer may identify simple things like edges and colors. And then it would pass the information on now to the second layer, which would take those edges and colors and turn them into shapes, right? And these shapes now will be turned into objects at the third layer. So your final layer, you will actually get an end product, which is like a car or a bus. So all these layers come together to create something that's, I guess, useful at the end. So that's basically how deep learning works.